What if I told you Psalm 91 wasn't written for the safe, but for the scared? Because the truth is, this psalm has been gripped by trembling hands in emergency rooms, whispered into the silence of sleepless nights, and held like a lifeline by those whose world was crumbling beneath their feet. It's been worn thin on the pages of Bibles belonging to those who have walked through fire and lived to tell about it. And maybe, by the time we reach the end, you'll realize this psalm was written for you. And if you've ever felt forgotten, by the end, you'll know why Psalm 91 remembers you. Psalm 91 has become one of the most quoted promises in all of the Bible. But is it possible we've missed what it's really saying? Right there in the opening line, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." We find the words that millions have repeated for comfort. But behind that comfort lies something much deeper and much more demanding. Because the shadow of the Almighty is not just a poetic phrase, it's a place, a spiritual location, and not everyone lives there. The promise isn't automatic, it's conditional. This psalm isn't a superstition you can speak once and be safe. It's a covenant of presence, forged in intimacy, in surrender, in the decision to stay close, even when everything in your life is falling apart. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. If you're standing in God's shadow, it means you're close enough to see what He sees, close enough to feel what He feels, close enough to trust Him when the light disappears. Psalm 91 isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about surviving it with someone beside you. In a world obsessed with comfort, this psalm calls us back to communion. In a time when fear is broadcast daily and peace feels like a fantasy, Psalm 91 declares something audacious: that God's protection is real, but it may not always look like what we expect. Because protection doesn't always mean the fire doesn't come. Sometimes it means the fire comes, and you don't burn. And just when you think you know what it means to be safe, this psalm turns everything upside down. There's a reason it speaks of traps and arrows, terrors and destruction. It doesn't deny fear, it names it, it confronts it. And then it points to a place stronger than the fear, a place so close to God that even the darkness must bow to His light. This is not a psalm for the unshaken, it's a psalm for the trembling, for the one barely hanging on, for the believer who says, "I'm afraid, but I'm still here." Welcome to the shadow of the Almighty. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. This opening line is not just beautiful, it's surgical. It cuts straight to the heart of what it means to live under divine protection. Not everyone gets to claim it. Not everyone qualifies. The promise begins with a condition: he who dwells. Not he who visits. Not he who remembers God when it's convenient. The word is dwell, to live, to remain, to stay. Protection begins not with proximity, but with permanence. And here's the hard truth: many of us don't dwell. We dip in and out of the presence of God like it's a convenience store. We show up on Sundays, whisper a prayer when the fear spikes, and call it faith. But the psalmist is not talking about occasional religion. He's talking about consistent communion. To dwell is to build your life around His presence, to make your home in the hidden place of intimacy, where the world's noise is silenced and your soul begins to hear again. In Exodus chapter 33, verse 14, God tells Moses, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." Not results, not resolutions, rest. The reward of dwelling is not escape, it's endurance. You see, the secret place isn't found on a map. It's not a monastery or a building. It's a posture of the heart. It's what Jesus meant when He said, "Abide in me, and I in you." It's the stillness in the middle of war, the peace that doesn't make sense, the unshakable center when everything else is falling apart. And if you've ever found yourself in a season where the world around you is loud, but your soul is still, you've been there. Here's the tension. We want protection without presence. We want the shelter, but we don't want to move in. But God is not a hotel. He's a home. So the question is this: are you visiting God, or are you dwelling with Him? Because everything else in Psalm 91 flows from this first choice. The promises don't come from reciting the words, they come from remaining in the place where those words were born. He who dwells lives in the secret place will find more than safety. He'll find someone waiting. Shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. We often think of shadows as something to avoid, places where danger lurks, where clarity fades, where fear grows. But in Psalm 91, the shadow is the safest place you can be. Why? Because you can't be in someone's shadow unless you're close. The shadow of the Almighty isn't cast from afar. It falls on those who walk right beside Him. And that changes everything. Because fear thrives in distance. When we drift from God, the darkness gets louder. The unknown becomes unbearable. The lies become believable. But when we remain close, even in the shadows, we begin to see something different. The shadow doesn't mean God is hiding. It means He's near. It's the paradox of divine protection, that sometimes the places that feel most frightening are actually the places where we're closest to Him. When the lights go out, when control slips away, when certainty dies. We often think God has left us, but in reality, we've stepped into His shadow, into the realm where faith becomes vision and trust becomes breath. Think of the Israelites in the wilderness. God went before them in a pillar of cloud by day. A literal shadow guided them through the heat, the fear, the desolation. The shadow wasn't a sign of absence. It was evidence of God's leadership. And even Jesus, when He approached the cross, walked straight into the shadow. He didn't run from it. He chose it. Because He knew what we forget, that sometimes the deepest intimacy with God is found not in the sunlight of certainty, but in the shadow of surrender. You may be walking through a valley right now, a season where fear is louder than hope, where shadows stretch long across your days. But hear this: if you're standing in His shadow, it means you're standing right next to Him. And that's not just poetry, that's reality. God doesn't promise to remove every threat, but He promises to remain closer than the threat itself. So when fear feels closest, draw nearer, press into the shadow, abide there. Because the shadow of the Almighty isn't the absence of light, it's the nearness of God. And the ones who dwell there, they are not forgotten. They are not forsaken. They are held. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him I will trust. The psalm shifts here. It's no longer just a description of where to dwell, it's a declaration of who God is. And it begins with a phrase we often overlook: I will say. Because what you say about God reveals what you believe about Him, and what you speak over your life, especially in fear, in crisis, in waiting, has the power to build either a fortress of truth or a prison of anxiety. In today's world, we declare a lot. We declare what the news tells us. We declare what our fears whisper in the night. We declare exhaustion, frustration, and worst-case scenarios without even realizing it. And slowly, brick by brick, we build a narrative that says, I am vulnerable, I am alone, I am not safe. But the psalmist does something different. He speaks not what he feels, but what he knows. He names God as his refuge, his hiding place, his protection, his shelter, and not just any refuge, a fortress, something built to withstand attack. It's not denial, it's direction. He's not pretending fear doesn't exist. He's choosing where to run when it comes. Proverbs chapter 18 verse 21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." That's not metaphor, that's scripture. What we say can either partner with fear or with faith. And when the psalmist says, "In him I will trust," he's not writing from a throne room. He's speaking from the battlefield, from the tension, from a place where trust costs something. This is where many of us struggle. We want to feel secure before we speak it. But in the kingdom of God, it's often the other way around. We speak truth until our soul remembers it. So ask yourself, what have I been saying of the Lord lately? Have I been calling him my refuge? Or have I been calling my fear reality? Have I declared that he is enough? Or have I allowed the world to define where my safety comes from? The words you choose are not just noise. They are weapons. They are bricks. They are pathways to faith or cracks in your foundation. So say it. Say it even if your voice trembles. He is my refuge. He is my fortress. And in him I will trust. Surely he shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. This is where Psalm 91 surprises us, because we expect protection to look like strength, shields, armies, walls. But here, it looks like feathers. First, a snare, an invisible trap set by a hunter. It's not loud, it's not obvious, it's subtle, strategic, designed to catch the unaware. That's the nature of spiritual danger. It doesn't always come like a lion. Sometimes it comes like an invitation, a slow drift, a compromise that seems small until you're stuck. And yet, the psalmist says, surely, not maybe, not hopefully, surely God will deliver. But not by always removing the trap. Sometimes he lets you see it just in time. Other times, he walks with you through it, untangling you from what was meant to destroy you. Then, without warning, the imagery shifts from snares and sickness to feathers and wings. What kind of God delivers with power and then covers with softness? Our God. This is the tension of divine protection. He is both warrior and mother, shield and shelter, defender and comforter. The feathers here echo something deeper. They're not random, they're personal. In Deuteronomy chapter 32, God is described as an eagle stirring its nest, covering its young with wings. The image is one of both vulnerability and intimacy. To hide under someone's wings is to surrender your defenses and say, I trust you more than I trust myself. And let's be honest, sometimes that's harder than fighting. We'd rather fix it, plan it, escape it, but real protection often looks like stillness, like hiding under wings you can't control, like waiting in faith while the storm howls around you. And here's the truth. God's protection doesn't always feel powerful. Sometimes it feels hidden, quiet, fragile. But that's the beauty of it. His gentleness is not weakness, it's invitation. To trust not in the absence of danger, but in the presence of the deliverer. You may not see the snare. You may still feel the pestilence creeping near. But if you're covered, if you're hidden in him, then you are not unprotected. You are held. So don't just look for the fortress, look for the feathers. Don't just seek escape, seek the wings. Because the safest place in the world is under the softness of his sovereignty. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. It's a short line, easy to miss. But buried in these few words is a lifeline for anyone drowning in confusion. Because fear doesn't always shout. Sometimes it disguises itself as caution. Worry pretends to be wisdom. And lies are rarely wild. They're usually logical. That's why God gives us a shield. And that shield is truth, not emotion, not instinct, not what feels safest, truth. And in a world where we're constantly bombarded by voices, social media, news, inner critics, it becomes harder and harder to discern which voice is God's. The enemy knows this. He doesn't just attack with pain, he attacks with distortion. You're not safe. You're not loved. God isn't near. And if we don't carry truth as a shield, those lies don't just touch us, they start to shape us. This is why Ephesians chapter 6 verse 14 says, "Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist." In ancient warfare, the belt held every other weapon in place. Without it, the armor collapsed. That's what truth does. It doesn't just protect, it holds everything else together. And Psalm 91 gives us two images, a shield and a buckler. The shield is broad, something you hide behind when the arrows fly. But the buckler, it's a smaller circular guard strapped to the arm, ready for close combat. In other words, God's truth protects you from distant attacks and the ones that get close. It defends you in public and in the dark. But here's the key: you have to carry it. You don't accidentally walk in truth. You choose it. You memorize it. You pray it. You speak it when fear feels more real than faith. You may not feel strong. You may not feel brave. But you can pick up the shield today and whisper, "God has not given me a spirit of fear." You can declare, "I am not alone." You can remember, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" Because God's promises weren't meant to be embroidered, they were meant to be carried. So ask yourself, what truth are you holding right now? If the only voices in your life are the ones on your screen, no wonder you feel vulnerable. Put the screen down, pick up the word, let truth be your shield again. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that lays waste at noonday. Psalm 91 doesn't sugarcoat reality. It names our fears, plainly, boldly, unapologetically. Terror by night, arrows by day, pestilence in darkness, destruction at noon. This is not poetic flair. This is war language, real language, and it's God's way of saying, "I see what you're up against." Because fear isn't one size fits all. Some of it sneaks in quietly, like terror at night, the kind of fear that has no shape, no voice, but wakes you up anyway. It lives in the imagination, in the what-ifs. It wraps around your thoughts when no one else can see it. Then there's the arrow that flies by day, visible, targeted. A diagnosis, a betrayal, a headline, something sharp enough to wound you where others can watch. Pestilence in the darkness, destruction at noon, disease that creeps without warning, chaos that breaks in when you thought everything was fine. It's the silent things and the shattering things, and God names them all. Why? Because what is hidden has power over us, but what is named can be fought. God isn't pretending fear doesn't exist. He's shining light on it. And then he says, "You shall not be afraid." Not because you're strong, not because it won't hurt, but because fear no longer owns you. This is a crucial turning point in the psalm. It doesn't offer protection by pretending danger doesn't exist. It offers confidence in the face of danger because of who is with you. And that matters, because many Christians are afraid to admit their fear. We're told to have faith, so we stay silent. But silence is not strength. Faith is not the absence of fear. It's the refusal to let fear make the final decision. And Psalm 91 gives us permission to name the darkness while trusting the light. So, if you've been walking through a night filled with unspoken terror, or if you've been hit by arrows you didn't see coming, hear this. God already saw it. He's not shocked. He's not retreating. He's not outmatched. The psalm is not saying the night will disappear. It's saying you don't have to be ruled by it. Because the one who watches in the dark is also the one who speaks light into being. And fear, it doesn't get the last word. 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you look and see the reward of the wicked. This verse doesn't whisper comfort, it roars defiance in the face of disaster. Because Psalm 91 doesn't promise an untouched life, it promises an unshaken soul. The imagery here is intense, thousands falling, collapse all around, the kind of loss that breaks the strongest men, the kind of devastation that makes you wonder if faith is enough. And right there, in the middle of it, it says, "You're still standing." This isn't a scene of avoidance, it's a scene of survival. And it forces us to confront something most of us never say out loud. What happens when faith doesn't stop the storm? What happens when others around you are being hit, when loved ones are suffering, when prayers seem unanswered, when destruction is real? That's when Psalm 91 becomes more than words. Because this verse doesn't promise you won't see the battle, it says you'll witness it and not be destroyed by it. But let's be clear, this isn't prosperity gospel. It's not a magic charm that keeps pain away. It's a line drawn by God Himself. You may see collapse, but I've marked your soul for preservation. This is spiritual warfare. This is eternal perspective. This is God saying, you may lose sleep, you may lose comfort, but you will not lose me. And when the smoke clears, when the noise fades, when 10,000 have fallen, the ones who have dwelled in the secret place, they are still standing. Not because they were lucky, because they were held. There's a moment in every believer's life when survival itself is a testimony. You shouldn't have made it through that depression. You shouldn't have walked away from that trauma. You shouldn't have still believed after what you saw. But here you are, standing. And heaven celebrates not just the miracle of healing, but the miracle of endurance. Because you didn't fall when the world did. You stayed. You remained. You dwelled in the shadow. And the God who marks sparrows marked you too. So the next time the world feels like it's falling apart, don't look down in fear. Look around and remember, you are surrounded by collapse, but not consumed by it. Because the God who stands above 10,000 graves is the same God standing next to you. For He shall give His angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Most believers know this verse. Fewer understand its weight. Because Psalm 91 doesn't just promise that God is watching over you, it reveals that heaven is mobilized on your behalf. God gives charge to His angels. That's military language. It's a command, an assignment, a divine order. These aren't decorative cherubs floating on clouds. They are messengers of fire, warriors of light, servants of the Most High dispatched into the seen and unseen corners of your life. Hebrews chapter 1 verse 14 says, "Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to serve those who will inherit salvation?" They don't act on their own. They don't serve our preferences. They carry out God's will, and His will includes keeping you. Think about that. There are moments in your life where you should have tripped, but didn't, where the accident almost happened, where the timing shifted by seconds. You called it coincidence. Heaven called it coverage. This doesn't mean you won't face pain. It doesn't mean you'll never bleed, but it does mean you are never unguarded. Even in the silence, even in the confusion, even when you think you're walking alone, there are hands beneath your steps. And the language is so tender, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Not break, not shatter, dash, a minor stumble, and God says, even that I care about. Because His protection isn't just about the big moments, It's about the details, the near misses, the close calls, the prayers you never got a chance to pray because the danger passed before you even saw it. That's angelic intervention. That's mercy in motion. But don't be mistaken. Angels are not your saviors. They're not to be worshipped or summoned. They are not magical guardians bound to your every whim. They're agents of God's sovereignty. And when He says go, they go. So if you're weary, if you're tired of fighting battles you can't see, remember this: you're not the only one walking. Heaven walks with you. And when your strength runs out, when your voice fades, when your knees shake, there are unseen hands holding you up, because the one who commands angels has already commanded them to keep you. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent you shall trample underfoot. This verse shifts the tone dramatically. Up to now, the psalm has described what God does for us: His shelter, His deliverance, His covering, His angels. But suddenly, it's you who's moving, not hiding, not surviving, treading. This is about authority, God-given, Spirit-empowered, heaven-backed authority. But let's pause here, because most believers don't feel powerful. We feel small, worn, outnumbered. Fear doesn't just knock on the door, it barges in and takes a seat. And in that moment, Psalm 91 speaks up. You shall tread, not maybe, not someday. You shall. The lion and the cobra represent two types of threats. The lion is loud, aggressive, overwhelming, trials that hit fast and hard. The cobra is silent, subtle, deceptive, temptations or lies that slip in quietly and poison you slowly. Whether it roars or hisses, God says, you've been given authority to walk over it. This isn't self-help. It's not about inner strength or positive thinking. It's rooted in the words of Jesus Himself. Luke chapter 10, verse 19. Behold, I give you the authority to trample on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. Jesus didn't say you wouldn't face darkness. He said you wouldn't have to bow to it. But that authority only comes from relationship, from dwelling, from trusting, from abiding, because spiritual authority doesn't come from volume, it comes from proximity. And here's the truth. Many believers live beneath the authority they've been given. We negotiate with fear instead of stepping on it. We tolerate lies that were meant to be crushed. We forget that our feet were made to walk in victory, not just survival. So let me ask you, what lies have you allowed to live in your life, simply because you forgot who you are? What serpent has slithered in and made itself at home? It's time to remember, you've been called to tread. You don't have to feel brave. You just have to walk in what's already yours. The ground beneath your feet is not neutral, it's promised. And every time you choose truth over deception, faith over fear, obedience over comfort, you trample something that once terrified you. Because in the shadow of the Almighty, you don't just survive, you overcome. Because He has set His love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. Up until now, Psalm 91 has been a voice speaking about God. But now, God speaks. It's no longer the psalmist declaring truths. It's the Lord Himself stepping into the story. The tone shifts, the voice becomes personal, the promises intensify, and the reason? One simple, powerful phrase: because He has set His love upon me. Not because He was perfect, not because she had no fear, not because they earned it, but because love anchored their heart to God. This is the foundation of divine protection, not performance, but affection. God doesn't say, because he obeyed every law. He says, because he loved me. This is where the psalm reaches its emotional and spiritual climax, because here, God isn't just offering safety, he's offering relationship. Deliverance isn't a transaction, it's a response to love. Honor isn't a reward, it's the result of intimacy. And satisfaction doesn't come from worldly blessings, it comes from seeing his salvation. And that word, salvation, it's not just about rescue. In Hebrew, it's the word Yeshua, the root of the name Yeshua, Jesus. The ultimate fulfillment of this psalm is not found in a life without pain, but in a Savior who stepped into our pain and spoke back with love. I will answer him. What a promise. Not silence, not indifference. Answer. We don't just call into the dark and hope. We call and God responds. I will be with him in trouble. Notice, in trouble, not around it, not above it, in it. The reward for love is not a life without suffering. It's a life where suffering is never faced alone. This is where fear dies, not because it disappears, but because the voice of God is louder than the voice of fear. So if you've ever wondered whether your love matters to him, if you've ever felt too small to be seen, this is your answer. Yes, he sees you. Yes, he answers. Yes, he delivers. Because you loved him, he speaks. And in that voice, we find the thing our hearts have been longing for since the first shadow fell across the world. We find the one who never left. So now we return to where we began. He who dwells in the secret place. After all the promises, all the images of feathers and fortresses, angels and arrows, one truth rises above them all. Psalm 91 is not a guarantee of an easy life. It's the revelation of a guarded soul. It's not about the absence of danger. It's about the presence of God in the midst of it. From the first verse to the last, the real promise has never been that you won't face the storm, but that you'll never face it alone. The secret place isn't a fantasy for the spiritually elite. It's an invitation for the weary, for the frightened, for the ones who no longer know what safety looks like, but who still whisper, God, I trust you. That's where Psalm 91 lives. It lives in the hospital room where someone sings through tears. It lives in the quiet home of a widow clinging to the word. It lives in the heart of a man driving into uncertainty, but refusing to let fear take the wheel. It lives in you. Right now, if your faith feels tired, if your hope is flickering, if you've been wondering where God is in the shadows, you're not disqualified. You're exactly who this psalm was written for. So let me ask you, what verse from Psalm 91 speaks to you most deeply right now? Write it in the comments. Share the promise that has held you up. And if you know someone who's walking through fear, someone who needs to hear that they're not forgotten, send them this video. Let them know the shadow isn't the end of the story. The enemy wants you to believe that fear wins. That silence means absence, that if you can't feel God, he must be far. But the truth is far more powerful. The shadow proves he's near. So stay close to the shepherd. Keep dwelling in the secret place. Speak his promises out loud, even when your voice trembles. And don't forget, you are not alone in the fire. You are not lost in the night. You are not abandoned in the storm. You are hidden. You are covered. You are loved. And the one who calls you to dwell has never stopped watching over you.